Hi, I'm Bruce, and this is the first in a three-part deep dive into one of the most important books in tabletop role-playing history, the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons First Edition Dungeon Master's Guide by Gary Gygax. Over the next 3 videos, we'll unpack what makes it so unique, what lessons still apply to Dungeon Masters today, and how its quirks can inspire you to create richer, more complete rules in your own games. When I first picked up the first edition DMG back in the day, I was expecting a rulebook, tables, charts, numbers. What I found instead was something closer to a philosophy manual. Between the dense rules and the endless appendices, there was a voice, Gygax's voice, talking directly to me about how to run a game. It wasn't just roll this and add that. It was about how to think as a dungeon master. Gygax's words still resonate because they're not tied to a single edition. They speak to the core of what makes role-playing work: authority, challenge, the passage of time, and the balance between structure and creativity. These principles are as relevant in a 5e game today as they were in a smoky basement in 1979. One of the clearest statements of Gygax's philosophy is right there in the DMG's afterword, in all caps no less. It is the spirit of the game, not the letter of the rules, which is important. Never hold to the letter written, nor allow some barracks room lawyer to force quotations from the rulebook upon you if it goes against the obvious intent of the game. That's the heart of it. The rules aren't meant to be shackles, they're a framework. The DM isn't there to be a computer parsing every line exactly as written. The DM is there to interpret those rules in service of the game's intent. Today, we'd call this the RAW versus the RAI debate. Rules as written versus rules as intended. Gygax came down firmly on the side of intent. If something in the book gets in the way of the adventure's flow or the table's enjoyment, it's your job as the DM to bend, twist, or ignore it, provided you're doing it to preserve the spirit of the game. Gygax was clear on one point. The Dungeon Master's job is not to coddle the players. Victories should be earned, not handed out. In his view, the fun came from overcoming real obstacles, not from watching your characters stroll through an adventure unscathed. One of his more famous bits of advice was, never give a sucker an even break. Now, that's tongue-in-cheek. He's not saying you should actively try to kill the party or cheat against them, but it reflects his belief that the game should keep players on their toes. If they're confident they can't lose, the tension disappears, and with it, the drama. He warned against what he called Monty Hall campaigns, games where magic items, gold, and XP flow so freely the characters shoot up in power far faster than the world around them. When that happens, the DM's ability to challenge them shrinks to almost nothing. The thrill of exploration, the satisfaction of a narrow escape, the joy of finding that one perfect treasure, all of that evaporates if there's no scarcity. Scarcity isn't a punishment, it's a design tool. When treasure, XP, and magic items are limited, players become strategic. They weigh risks. They choose carefully when to use their potions, who to heal first, whether to press forward or retreat. This mindset has deep parallels in modern game design. Look at survival horror games like Resident Evil, where every bullet counts, or resource management sims where running out of food means losing the game. The OSR, old school Renaissance movement, embraces this too. Danger is constant, and success feels earned because the game world is stingy with its rewards. By contrast, overly generous playstyles can collapse tension. If the party gets a magic sword in every room and levels up twice a session, they'll stop caring about the tactics or consequences. Scarcity makes each gain matter. It forces players to value their resources and think like adventurers, not superheroes. Gygax understood that challenge and scarcity go hand in hand. Without them, you're not really playing the game he envisioned, you're just running a power fantasy on autopilot. And that's not what the Dungeon Master Guide was written for. One of Gygax's quiet masterstrokes in the Dungeon Master's Guide was his understanding that scarcity breeds investment. When treasure, XP, and magic items are rare, every single one matters. Players stop thinking like superheroes and start thinking like survivors. Do we risk another room with only one healing potion left? Is it worth burning our last scroll here, or do we save it for something worse? Scarcity forces planning. It forces cooperation. The fighter may want to charge ahead, but the wizard reminds them the torches are almost out. And when that magic sword finally appears, it's not just another line on the character sheet. It's a trophy, a story, and a point of pride. Modern game design leans on this same principle. In survival horror like Resident Evil, limited ammo keeps your heart rate up. In strategy and simulation games, resource scarcity drives every decision. The OSR movement builds entire campaigns around the same DNA. Danger is constant, rewards are rare, and the victory screen is survival itself. The opposite approach, showering players with magic, XP, and gold, collapses that tension. If characters level twice a night and carry an arsenal that could arm a small kingdom, they stop fearing loss. And without fear of loss, there is no thrill in victory. Gygax didn't just want you tracking gold and hit points. He wanted you tracking time. In fact, he flatly declared, you cannot have a meaningful campaign if strict time records are not kept. To him, time was the invisible engine that kept the world moving. Without it, players could heal instantly, or craft items overnight, or appear in multiple places at once with no consequences. But when you track time, cause and effect take root. Downtime matters. Healing a serious wound might take weeks, forcing the party to decide whether to rest or press on wounded. Crafting that suit of armor might mean missing the spring caravan and losing a trade opportunity. Winter might cut off the mountain pass entirely. NPCs have their own schedules. The Duke's Court might be in session for only once a month, or the Thieves Guild might be busiest during the Harvest Festival. By making time a real, measurable part of the game, Gygax made the world feel alive. The clock kept ticking whether the players were ready or not, and that urgency turned every choice into part of a living, breathing campaign. One of Gygax's most overlooked messages in the Dungeon Master's Guide is that you have to earn the right to change the rules. His advice was clear. Learn them deeply first, understand why they exist, what they protect, and how they keep the game balanced before you start to pull them apart. This wasn't just about personal campaigns. AD&D was built with standardized play in mind, especially for tournaments. Gygax knew that if everyone was running wildly different house rules, you couldn't sit down at a convention table and expect a fair game. Standardization made it possible for strangers to play together without endless debates before rolling the first die. But that doesn't mean he opposed creativity. The tension between a unified rule set and homebrew freedom is one of the most enduring debates in the hobby. Done well, bending the rules can be magic. Adjusting encounters for your group's playstyle, tweaking a class ability to fit a character's backstory, or introducing a house rule that makes your table lean into the setting's tone. Done poorly, though, it can destroy balance. Giving one player a free bonus because it feels cool, while ignoring the same opportunity for others erodes trust. Handing out high-level abilities early can short-circuit the game's pacing. Gygax's point was simple. You're the creator, but you're also the referee. And that means fairness first, invention second. Gary Gygax's referee-first mindset shaped not just AD&D, but the DNA of tabletop role-playing. His principles, authority with fairness, challenge through scarcity, time as the campaign's heartbeat, and respect for the rules before you change them have echoed through every edition of D&D, countless indie RPGs, and the entire OSR movement. Even today, designers and dungeon masters wrestle with these same ideas. How much freedom should a DM have? How punishing should the game be? How do you keep tension alive without alienating the players? These are the same questions Gygax was wrestling with in 1979, and they're still worth wrestling with now. If you've never read the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide, do it. Not just for the rules, but for the philosophy. And stick around, because in part 2, we're going to explore the rules and mechanics from the first edition Dungeon Master's Guide that still shape D&D to this day.